Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, and it is time for Ask a Crafter, where I answer your questions that you have left me on my YouTube channel. This first question comes from Lori, and she asks, do you ever get overwhelmed with all of your supplies and what to do next? Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few ways I deal with this. I used to do a lot of sponsored videos, which I'm not saying I'm never doing them again, but I haven't done sponsored videos since last year, and that would really dictate or kind of give me parameters to work within. So if I knew I was doing a video for a certain stamp company, I knew what stamps I was going to use, and then I could be creative. I'd have that one kind of jumping off point, and then I could be creative with everything else I wanted to add to it or do with it and whatnot. So that's one way, just by limiting my scope of supplies, that would help me be creative. So say you maybe you bought some new stamps. If you pick one of those stamp sets, okay, I'm going to use this next, and then choose other things that will go with it. That can help you be creative just by setting some sort of boundary, because I have a lot of supplies and I have a lot of interests, and I can get very excited about a lot of things at once and then be completely overwhelmed trying to decide what to do. Another thing that really helps me is to decide if I'm having like a low energy time, like I don't really feel like getting out my supplies and making anything, but I'm feeling kind of creative. I'm just not feeling very energetic. Maybe it's the end of the day. Maybe it's like, I don't know, after dinner, and I don't really want to start something. I will maybe go into my studio, the storage area of the studio, and I will get a basket and I will put a bunch of products together that I think I would like to use next. And I might make a couple of those project baskets and maybe write some notes of what I would like to do with them. And then I have all the supplies there. And the next time I have the time and the energy to create, which is usually in the mornings, I'll just grab that basket and go. So I already have those decisions made for me, so I can just kind of say, this is my boundary, this is what I'm using, and I'll be creative within that. So setting boundaries is a great way to conquer the overwhelm when you've got a lot of supplies that you could be using. All right. And let's see. Oh, by the way, that question was from Lori. This question is from Amy C. And she has a few questions, and I'm going to see if I can put, I think they all relate to one another. What supplies do you regret buying so much of, or make you feel like your collection has gotten out of control? Oh boy. That's a really loaded question, because I do a lot of different crafts, and I don't think I would say necessarily out of control, but okay, watercolor palettes. I don't regret any of them, and the reason why I've kept them though is, and I would specify student grade watercolor palettes. I have a lot of student grade watercolor palettes. I have a lot of artist grade palettes too. Watercolors, if I had to pick one medium, watercolor would be my primary medium, but I do a lot of mixed media. I mix it with other things, and I do enjoy so many different art medias, and I find they all weave in together nicely with the way I like to work. But anyway, student grade watercolor palettes. And you're probably thinking, why don't you just donate them? And I donate ones that I don't think I'm going to refer back to, but a lot of times I will get a palette to review, and a lot of these student grade palettes were ones that were provided for review from different companies. The reason I keep a lot of those is because sometimes you get a brand new palette and you're all excited about it, but then it's like, oh, wait a minute, this seems familiar, and I like to compare them to other palettes that I have to see if it's the exact same paint. Like I just recently found out, well, my opinion is that one that I'm going to review it either in the next couple of weeks, or maybe I have by the time this video comes out. There's a palette, it was lovely, the quality was really good, and it was very affordable, but it kind of seemed familiar. And so I compared it with 6 other palettes I had, and I determined they're very similar to 5 other palettes that I have that all seem to be about the same formula. And it's like, if you have one of these, that can save somebody 20 or 30 bucks from buying another one that's going to be almost identical. So I don't feel like it's gotten out of hand because I'm very organized, but that wasn't always the case. If you look back at my video from 2017 where I did the craft room KonMari, yeah, a lot of things had gotten out of hand. And things that had gotten out of hand that I drastically reduced were pattern paper, scrapbook paper, mat boards, because I used to do custom framing, and I bought a ton when a framing shop went out of business. I overbought because I found that, especially when I was younger, I had no ability to grasp how much I would actually use or how much I could use in a certain amount of time. And I used to teach classes, and having an excess and abundance of material was really good, because I didn't have to skimp. I could really provide a lot to my students. But now that I am teaching online, I don't need to have so much on hand. I do envision teaching in the future, but there's certain things I know that I'm not going to need a large amount of. So I don't think that I've gotten too out of hand with anything, but that's how I did deal with stuff when I did get out of hand. I just kind of picked my favorites. Everything can't be your favorite. Pick your favorites that you could use up in a couple of years, depending on the lifespan of the product, and let the rest go. And it's hard. It's very hard because we're artists and we see potential in everything. We see potential in a box that someone in your family is going to throw away. We see potential in that. So it's a good thing. It's a blessing and a curse. And it, you know, it's just part of the artist's journey, I think. If it gets in your way of creating, then it's time to let it go. But if it doesn't, then, you know what? Everyone has their own clutter level that they're comfortable with, I think. So, and we're all different. When you have a ton of the same type of supplies but from various brands, for example, brush pens, watercolor pencils, how do you decide which set or brand to use at any given time? Well, often I will look online, and if I see that one of these brands, some brands get discontinued, and I don't necessarily get rid of something if it's discontinued, if I can use it in a class. So I try to use something that's available for other people to find if they like it. And also I will look and see if any of the brands that are equivalent are on sale. So if I go online and I see the Ohuhu brush markers are on a crazy sale this week and I'm going to do a marker video, then I'll probably use those because they're on sale. If I see the Bianos are on sale, I'll use those because they're on sale. They're very equivalent. So that's one of the reasons I decide. Some of my income is made from affiliate marketing, but I want to definitely recommend things that are the best value at any given time. So, I mean, I'm not expecting anybody to buy anything, but that's one of the things that I will look at because I don't want to use something that is twice as expensive that's the equivalent to another brand that is, you know, on sale for half this week. You know how things fluctuate, but that's one of the reasons that's one reason how I choose. Or maybe I'm using like a paper that's the same brand of the pens that I'm going to use. I know I'm going to use this paper then like a marker pad. If I know I'm going to use like an Arteza marker pad, I'll probably grab the Arteza markers because they're, you know, they should be formulated to be compatible with each other, as compatible as they can be. And then if somebody is interested in buying one or both of those products, they might be able to save money if they're buying them both from the like Arteza store or both from Amazon. I try to make it so that if somebody wants to buy the products I'm using, it's going to be the most affordable and easiest to obtain. But that's pretty much it. I mean, like I keep like a Spectrum Noir set of watercolor pencils and Prismacolor set of color pencils right next to my desk. I usually grab those. I have all my open stock stuff here. This is what I usually use unless it's like a specific, unless it's some sort of specific project where you might be starting out and be a complete beginner and need to start from scratch. I don't recommend you buy open stock. Like if you don't even know what you like, to buy like 5 or 10 markers could cost you the same as buying like a set of 72 from one of these Amazon sellers that are, I mean, like Ohuhu, Biano, those are great companies. You might as well buy a set from them and have everything you need for way less than buying a few open stock markers. So I try to keep that in mind. What's going to be the easiest for my viewers to get? What are they likely to have already? Or if they need to buy it new, what's going to be the best value? But then again, that's because I'm doing YouTube tutorials. If you're in a different situation, yeah, it probably doesn't really make a lot of sense to have a bunch of duplicate products unless you go through them so quickly and you know you'll go through them. And I do teach workshops, so having those additional sets I put to use that way. And how many colors do you really need when starting a new hobby? Be it coloring pencils, brush lettering, or watercolor paints. There are so many sets of varying sizes that it can be overwhelming, and there's always an urge to buy more rather than less because it works out to less per color. Yes, that is very true. So my rule of thumb is if it's a dry media, you're better off to have more colors. If it's a wet media, you can definitely get by with fewer colors. So let's say you're getting into watercolor painting and you're pretty sure you want to do it, you love the look of it, you're pretty sure you're going to put the time and energy into learning this and it's not just a fly-by-night whim. Then I would say you're probably better off to buy the Daniel Smith Essential Set of 6. It's 6 5-milliliter tubes, so they're tiny tubes, but they go a long way. That has recently been about $25 to $30 on Amazon. And then maybe pick up an individual tube of sap green, yellow ochre, and burnt umber or burnt sienna. And yes, you'll pay more for those few colors than you would a whole palette of student grade paints, but if you're sure it's something you want to do, you can mix all the colors you need from those. So that would be my recommendation. But if you're like, well, I kind of like watercolor, but I don't know, or maybe the cost of those is just like, that would probably be let's see, that could probably be about $60 right there in those tubes. Or you could get the pretty excellent set of watercolor half pans, 36 set for $20. You know, if you're thinking that I'm going to waste that paint, you know, if you're worried about wasting paint, I don't want you to spend $60 on paint because you might never touch it. Get the cheaper paint. So, and have more colors, and feel free to experiment because you've got all of those colors. So it really depends on your attitude and how you're approaching that subject, and how serious you are about it. Now, I'm not saying you can't create serious work with those pretty excellent paints. You absolutely can, but to be honest, you're going to be a better painter, and you're going to learn faster, and you're going to learn color theory if you go for a limited palette and you really see what you can do with those colors. You max out what you can do with those colors before adding to it. So it really depends on your price sensitivity and how seriously you're taking the craft, and also your budget. So I don't want to, you can take a piece of masking tape and you can tape over those pans other than those basic, you know, 9 colors, and just keep using those colors up and then replacing them as needed with artist grade tubes. You know, you could do that with a larger set if you're budget conscious and you want to start off that same way. But yeah, it can be a bit of sticker shock. So yeah, it really just depends on your price sensitivity and how serious you want to take the medium. It's fun to have a lot of colors, I'm not going to lie. But something like alcohol markers, having more is much better because it's difficult to transition those colors, and it can be very frustrating. If you had that packet, like a starter packet of 12 Copics, which is going to run you probably like $50 or more, it's going to be so difficult to get the blends that you want with only 12 colors that it's going to be so frustrating. Having like the Ohuhu set of 72 that would cost at like $50, the same price, you're going to have, I don't want to say I'm promoting Ohuhu, but I do like them. I think they're a good value. You're going to be able to get so many more blends. It's going to be so much less frustrating for you, and you're spending the same amount of money. So colored pencils the same way. Although you can do beautiful things blending with a limited selection of 12 or 24 pencils, it's going to be a lot easier if you have more colors, and it does work out significantly less per pencil to do that. So, but oil paints, yeah, a few tubes, you're going to be fine. And with oil paints, I used to think student grade oil paint, like the budget grade oil paint, I would not recommend. Student grade, I would recommend, like if you're getting them from like a Winsor & Newton or Royal Talons, or and you're not getting their basic budget like Simply or Artist Creation lines. You're getting like for instance Winsor & Newton, their Winton line I think is excellent for a student grade line. I wouldn't get I probably wouldn't get, oh, you know, their Reeves water mixable oils are not bad. I would say as long as you're getting like a solid student range, you're probably fine in oils. But with oils you can mix so much that you really don't need to have like a huge set of them. And those huge sets of 24 that you see for like $20 on Amazon, I would pass on those, and I would just get a few tubes of like Winton. And those are pretty easily found at most stores. But if it's like, if you're talking about pastels, things you're not really going to blend too much, you're going to kind of put a stroke down and let that luminous color sit there, you're better to have a bigger selection. That's a dry media. Pastels, color pencils, markers, definitely a larger selection. Things you can blend with water, I would say a smaller selection. You can get by with a much smaller selection of watercolor markers versus alcohol markers. You can get by with a much smaller selection of watercolor pencils versus colored pencils, like a wax or oil-based colored pencil. So if you can mix it with water, or you can mix it in general, smaller, better quality is better. If it's dry, go with a largest set you can afford. But look for a decent pencil. There are some decent budget pencils, I will say. But do your research, because you don't want to buy 5 budget pencils. For the cost of 5 budget sets of pencils, you could have bought the Polychromos, you could have bought the Derwent Lightfast, you could have bought the Prismacolors, you know, you could have bought a better pencil. So do your research. Isn't that what it all comes down to? Anyway, it's doing your research about the products. And also, I mean, nowadays there's so many reviews online. I have a lot of reviews. The Art Gear Guide has a lot of reviews. For watercolor, Kimberly Crick Art has a lot of reviews. Owen's Art. There's so many review channels out there that do a really thorough, good job. I would avoid the first impressions and unboxing videos and go for actual reviews where the artist has used it for a while before they comment on what they're using. Or find people's artwork you like and see what they're using, because that's a great way to figure out what to use. I feel like I've got my shoulders hunched up for some reason. Oh, I gotta shake out the sillies. Is that what the teachers used to say? Let's see. Nary's asks, do one of your kids have interest in going to art school, or maybe a niece or nephew of yours? Do you help with your portfolio, or did you help with your portfolio? No, not really. I don't have, my kids are not quite sure what they want to do yet. They've got interests. The girls have a lot of interests. Jackson has, I think he's very entrepreneurial. I think he wants to own a business. I don't think he's quite sure what that is yet, but he's going to go work for my my parents' family business. And who knows? They're young. They got a lot of life ahead of them. My my niece Sarah did go to graphic design school, and you make so many different changes in your life. But no, didn't help her with a portfolio. She was an adult student. So no, I'm not necessarily, I don't know how I really feel about art school. On one hand, I kind of regret not going. I wonder what would my career be like if I had gone to art school. Would it be different? I went to broadcasting school and my degree is in communications, which has helped with YouTube because it is all communications based. But something you kind of wonder about. But then again, I know a lot of people that went to art school and they're not working in art whatsoever. So it's kind of a gamble. I do find I think college nowadays anyway is kind of a gamble, but I definitely think going for something that you cannot get a job when you graduate that will even pay the interest on your student loans, I mean, that seems like a real gamble, unless you're independently wealthy or have all the money all saved up so you don't have to go into debt for it. It's a gamble. So that's not what you asked, but that's my opinion. We welcome yours. And I'd love to know what you think about that in the comments below. Jessica R asks, can you do a video comparing acrylics, or for Ask a Crafter, quickly go over what a beginner would want to get started and what to look for in acrylic paints? Thank you so much for all you do. Jessica, I don't use acrylics that often. I would refer you to my friend Cinnamon, who runs the Art Sherpa channel. She has so many paint-alongs, like paint party style paint-alongs, and she would have a lot of good advice for you. But I don't. However, I can tell you my favorite paints, and I have them right here because I just ordered some more colors. Oh, at least I thought I did. I thought I had them. Oh, they are. They're right here. So what I would recommend, because I actually, in full disclosure, I paint in oils and watercolor more often, mixed media, and I don't usually use acrylics unless I'm just base coating something like some furniture or crafts. But the paints I like to paint with are the golden open acrylics, and I started off with the modern color selection, this set of small tubes. I think I paid $16 at AC Moore with a coupon right a couple months before they announced they were closing. I really like these. And then I just ordered the traditional colors, which has like your ultramarine blue, your sap green, I think it's sap green, it might be hooker's green, burnt umber, yellow ochre, alizarin crimson, and these are more of the modern mixing colors. And I would also recommend, if you get one of these sets, get a white as well. But these sets are wonderful. There's 6 colors per set. Pick one. You don't need them both. Pick the color palette you tend to work in most, whether it's traditional or modern. And I would start with those. They stay wetter longer, so they're less frustrating to use than traditional acrylics that dry so fast. Yeah, unless you know of a class that's happening nearby, maybe you prefer the decorative art painting style, and those usually use a bottled acrylic, which are much cheaper. They're about $2 a color, and in that case, then I would recommend going that route. But if you're looking for more of a traditional painting style, like maybe something that looks a little bit more like oil, then I would recommend the golden open acrylics. But I really can't compare because I haven't used that many high-end acrylics. I have used Liquitex. I like the Liquitex brand, but I haven't used a lot of these different popular brands, so I make a point of not reviewing things I am not familiar with, because I don't think that's fair for somebody watching the video. Okay, we are at 18 minutes. I think I'm going to end with this one because it's more of like a, I don't know, I think it's a good one to end with. It's more of like kind of a thought experiment type thinking question, not so much a supply question. Samarit's Designs, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, asks, I'm not a beginner, but certainly not advanced in watercolor. I'm struggling with what to paint. I'm so overwhelmed by my ideas that I get paralyzed. So my questions is, what makes a dynamic composition? And how do I include a background that won't detract yet makes the design look finished? How do I paint from a photograph? Oh, and I think that's the end of the question. Sometimes YouTube glitches. I'm reading them off the community page. What makes a dynamic composition? Well, generally you've got balance. There are the elements of design and style, and you can look those up. But generally, when I'm looking at what makes a good composition, like maybe I'm setting things up for a still life, I am looking for balance. I don't want lopsided. I don't want everything on one side and nothing on the other side, because that can be a little unsettling. I'm looking for colors that go well together, but also add a little bit of spice and excitement. So if I was painting, say, a bowl of oranges, I might put them on a blue, in a blue bowl, or put a blue tablecloth, because that's an opposite color. They're opposite on the color wheel, so it gives you a little bit more of a dynamic feel. Those shapes are round, so maybe I would put something like a cheese grater standing up next to it. That's got sharp, angular, shiny edges. That's going to give me some contrast. It's going to go with the theme of it being kind of like food and kitchen stuff, but it's going to give me a contrast in color and in texture and in shape. So you want to get some contrast in there. You want colors that go together, but maybe opposites or something opposite to kind of bounce those colors off to give you a little bit of excitement. And painting from photographs, how do you paint from a photograph? I would recommend, well, there's a lot of wonderful sites out there like Unsplash, Pixabay, and Pexels, where you can use those photos. They do have copyrights on them, but they're royalty free. They're commercial use. You can use them. So you can find compositions already made that look nice if you're not so comfortable with your composing abilities. Or you can take photographs yourself. And when you take photographs yourself, you're probably going to have to pick and choose from different photographs. And in fact, it's a good idea to pick and choose from different photographs to make the most dynamic composition. But then you've got to struggle sometimes with lighting being a little bit different, and you've got to compensate with that. So what I would actually recommend for you, if you're looking to get better at composition, is to set up your own still lifes at home. You can control your lighting, you can put a lamp on it, you can get it lit the way you want, and everything with your lighting is going to agree because they're all going to be in the same space that you've set up. You can experiment with different colored drop cloths, you can experiment with different items from around your home. They're things you're familiar with, so it will be easier to paint them because you'll know how they look, or you can pick them up and actually look at them closely. That would be my recommendation, because it's easy to paint from a photo where the composition is all done and you're just copying it. But if you want to learn about composition, setting up your own still life will really help, and you have things around your home you can use. You don't have to get anything fancy. You can look in your dishware cupboards, and you can pick out pitchers and glasses and bottles and anything you have around your home that you like the looks of, that looks interesting, and put it together. That would be the best way, I think, to improve your composition. And you'll see what works and what doesn't. Like, you'll see how like things in odd numbers look better than things in even numbers, because our brain naturally wants to match things up. You can look at overlapping and line. So you don't want everything bunched all up so, you know, nothing stands out, but you want to look at like where things connect. Maybe you want to put something out on its own because you want it to have some sort of space or focal point, but you want other things clustered together because you like the way that looks. Playing around with your own still life compositions are really going to help you with that. So, and it doesn't matter if you're painting in watercolor or what you're painting in. And you asked about backgrounds. What I like to do is actually put a unifying wash down when I'm doing a watercolor. So I wet the paper and I think about what are the colors I'm going to use in this composition. I figure it out first, and then I try to use all the colors that I plan to use in my composition in the background, even if they're really grayed down and mixed together so they're muted and neutralized, because that's going to give harmony to the entire painting, and it'll make your whole painting look a lot more unified. Even if you have that dynamic composition, having your colors unified is really going to help you make a better painting. So I hope that helped. Thank you so much for watching this long Ask a Crafter. I think we're going to do some shorter ones too in the mix, just to make things a little different, so everyone gets something that they like. And thanks for watching. Till next time, happy crafting. Bye.